It's a very interesting question. And I think the way I look at this from an investor and as a lending perspective is that I don't rule anything out. For example, I don't at the moment want to put a lot of investment and lending into Spain. But I would put investment into the regional authority of Madrid. Why do I say that? Why do I make that point? I make the point because, as you said earlier in your analysis, and just now again, we're dealing with infrastructure that has very high upfront capital cost. So from a private investor and lender perspective, and let's be clear on this, from my perspective, I don't mind investment coming in from KfW, from EBRD, from EIB, the IFIs. But this is not private sector capital. This is sovereign state subsidy. So I make a distinction between the gentleman on my left, his institution, private sector bank, and my colleague on my right. These are very different institutions. And you can make things viable with this gentleman's money. But this gentleman's money is sovereign money. Yes, they raise money in the capital markets, but it is state subsidy. So if we're looking at private investment, one has to look very carefully at the private sector. If you want private sector investment, then you have to look what makes those organizations make the decisions they do. And they look fundamentally that there needs to be a commitment that the upfront capital will be paid back. The only way to determine that is to look very carefully at the economic drivers in relation to a sovereign, in relation to a country. This is why I say I would lend to Madrid and not to other parts of Spain. Now, country by country, I could go through the Balkans and find very different dynamics between each of the countries. And I think some would represent a credible commitment politically, economically, sensibly, regulatory, the position of the population, the tax-raising powers, the future growth, and make a case to invest private sector capital. And some, I don't think I would get there in 20, 30 years. So one no longer looks anymore at a country and say, I will lend into a country. Now more than at any more time, and I have no time for rating agencies, but they do provide some guidance as to confidence levels in respect of sovereigns. And now more than ever in the investment world and the true private sector capital world, the strength economically of sovereigns is very, very critical. So from our perspective, that is the analysis we perform, and therefore there will be certain countries we will invest into, and within certain countries, certain regions we might invest and lend into. But it's not homogeneous anymore. The world has changed.
I'll come to Mr. Carić and then to Mr. Beikos, because I think he has a lot of explanations to do. Now, Mr. Carić, unlike Gershon here, you are already involved, heavily involved in the area. I mean, you have operations in different countries. So for you, it's not so much a choice of investing in this area or not, but of how far do you see development and expansion in the area. Am I right?
Absolutely. For Erste Bank, there is absolutely no other way but to keep investing in the region. I mean, we are a regional, or we are the regional bank, and what we have seen in countries such as Czech Republic and Slovakia, which I put as the best examples of countries which 15 years, 20 years ago were planned economies, and today are fully market-oriented and very well-performing countries, what we have seen is that there are great needs into investing into infrastructure, and those infrastructure investments do pay off, and they pay off through many ways, not only for the banks and investors, but they do pay off for the population, because it increases the standard of living, the level of democracy, everything you want. So if you are looking at a bank that is not only financially but also socially and philosophically oriented towards this region, and it's really defending it, and it's really putting the money where our mouth is, you look at Erste Bank.